Hello, and welcome to The Artist Pivot, a weekly conversation with artists about their current pivot, past pivots, and every pivot in between. I am your host, Ayana Major Bay, an actress who wants to educate, empower, and celebrate artists so they have no option but to thrive. On this episode, I am joined by actor, producer, founder, and creative director of Broadway Black, Andrew Shade. He is originally from Indiana and now resides in New York City. This year, he produced the first ever ANTONYO Awards, honoring Black artists on Broadway. We discuss his swift move to NYC after losing his job in Indiana, how Broadway Black turned into much more than he imagined, resulting in him putting himself on the back burner, and that our first therapist is our breath. Here's our conversation. So, hello there, Mr. Andrew Shade. How are you doing, hon?
I can't complain. I'm alive, breathing on schedule.
Yeah. You're right about that, my dear. You're right about that. And where are you in the world right now?
Currently, I am in the Bronx. I live in Riverdale, New York.
Okay. And are you from the Bronx?
No. I'm originally from Indiana. So I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I moved to New York about 8 years ago.
Okay. And what made you move to New York?
Following dreams. I think, New York City has always been the city of dreams, and I wanted to come here to pursue mine. I've always been a theater lover. And I had just lost my job right before I moved here. So I just lost my job, and I said to myself, if I'm going to start over, I don't want to start over in Fort Wayne, in Indiana. So I just sold all my furniture, and I picked up and I moved. It's a little bit more detailed than that, but I did get inspired. I went to go see Kinky Boots in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing an out-of-town tryout, and I had just lost my job the day before, and I already had these tickets. So I went to Chicago to see Kinky Boots and was like so excited, lived my life. I went shopping that day. Really didn't have no money to be shopping, but I did anyway just to make myself feel better.
Uh-huh.
And I went and stage doored the show and met Billy Porter. And he really inspired me and told me that if I felt like I needed to be in New York, then I needed to get there as soon as I could. And that was a sign for me. So I picked up and sold all my stuff, and I was in New York about maybe 2 weeks later.
All right. Look at you.
Yeah.
You were like, okay, I'm doing this.
Yep, I'm out. That was the confirmation I needed. I needed that affirmation from someone else. And yeah, he affirmed me in that way, and I picked up and I just went for it. And it was sort of destined. I think the universe sort of responded in kind to me doing that and listening to myself. Because once I moved here, I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have anything, so I made a tweet. And I tweeted out, this is like Twitter was just starting to pop or whatever. It's 2012. So Twitter had been out for maybe like 2 or 3 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of popping. So I had a little bit of a following, and I tweeted out and said, hey, I'm in New York. If anybody got a place for me to stay, let me know. Didn't know what I was about to do.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I landed, I had messages to that tweet, and somebody came and got me from the airport, let me stay in a room that they had available in Yonkers. And I stayed in Yonkers for like my first month and a half of being in New York City until I moved into Harlem. I rented a room in Harlem. But yeah, so like the first day I got here, I found a place to stay. The next day I found a job as a bartender. And then the third day I found my boyfriend that I dated for 5 years.
Yeah. So you were on it. You were like 1, 2, 3.
Oh my God. I was on it. Do you hear me? I came and had a whole new life once I got here.
I get it. So that was your first pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Like you lost your job in Indiana and you were like, well, okay, what am I going to do now?
Right. I'm out. Like, let's go. So yeah, that's how it happened. And I definitely pivoted. That was a big pivot too. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And so when you got to New York, what was your focus? Or did you not have one? You were just like, I'm here and I'm going to...
Well, I studied musical theater at Ball State University, but I dropped out my senior year. I was going through a lot of mental stress, I guess you could say. Not really knowing that I had depression and anxiety. Didn't really know what that was. It wasn't something we really talked about during that time when I left school in like 2009. So I started Broadway Black. Really came an idea in like 2010, but I formulated the idea and didn't really follow through. And it wasn't until I moved to New York that I saw the need for the platform that I had in my head that I sort of had started to create and not really push forward with. But I saw that there was a need for it. So that's what made me pick it back up and say, okay, I have to really like form this and take this seriously. And this could be my way into the industry. People were, hitting the pavement in different ways and auditioning and doing internships, and people were finding their own way to be seen or to to make a statement in the industry. And I knew that I had a gift. I knew that I was talented, but I knew that I wasn't a run of the mill. So I knew that I wasn't on the same rat race as everyone else. Um, and I decided to use Broadway Black as my uh, learning course of what it meant to be in this industry. And so I did what I thought looked good, or what I thought was the right move to make. And that sort of just led me on this crazy journey of creating content and interviewing multiple Broadway stars and being at all these events and things. And so it sort of just picked up over time. Um, it yeah, I didn't plan on like starting it, like really coming to New York and doing that. I thought I was going to be an actor. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I saw an opportunity to, and I saw a need really in the community. And so, yeah, I just began. And I had no journalism background, no social media background, marketing background, any of that, anything of that nature. I really pretty much had to teach myself as I gone along. So yeah,
Right.
that's how it started.
That's how it started, right? You just had the idea. And as you were pursuing acting, you were like, well, I also have this talent and I
But
see the need.
the thing is,
Hmm.
I never really pursued acting. Once
Did really?
never really had the chance. I mean, I literally moved here
Okay.
on November the 12th. I found a
Hmm.
job on the 13th. My boyfriend at the time worked at the same job I was working at, so I was bartending. And you got to remember, this is right after Hurricane Sandy. So like a lot of things were closed down. It was just the whole city was in a pivot because of the hurricane. So
Hmm.
um, it was a different time, and so I was still discovering what it meant to live here and
Mm.
what it meant to really be myself. It's first time me living on my own, like without immediate family nearby, or that people didn't know who I was. Like I come from a smaller town. My dad's a pastor. He owns a black owned business that a lot of people frequent. And so a lot of people knew me because of my dad, where I was from. They knew me because of my parents.
Hmm.
So this was the first time feeling some sort of freedom in who I was and developing who I was and trying to figure out where to go next. So I really didn't have an opportunity to start auditioning for any acting work because immediately Broadway Black sort of became my focus, and that was how I connected with um, how I started just showing up at events because I started to look and see where things were happening. So that's how I entered into the industry, was showing up at like opening nights and taking pictures and starting this Instagram and building a website for it and trying to figure out what it meant to be a media outlet for Black people. Um,
Hmm.
I never had the opportunity to really start like auditioning or knowing what that was like. Yeah, I wish that I would have.
Hmm.
I would have a lot of a different insight into what it is that I'm doing now. But everything in its time. So yeah, and yeah, for a long time I put myself on the back burner talent wise in order to do Broadway Black.
Hmm. Hmm. Understood. Understood. Well, I actually didn't know that about you because, we met a little while ago doing a production of Dreamgirls that was unfortunately
Yeah.
shut down
Oh my
because of
goodness.
COVID. But I didn't know that. I thought you were doing both at the same time.
No, Dreamgirls was my first show.
Really?
I have not done a show in like 8 years. I did actually a lie. I did the first Noel at the Apollo. I was in the ensemble of that show. Jason Michael Webb and Leland Duran were good friends of mine, and they wrote that show and I auditioned for that. And ended up getting a role in the ensemble, meeting some wonderful people, working with Angela Burchett. Ayanna
Hmm.
George was in that show at the time. Ken Robinson, just Lizanne Mitchell, just some really, really wonderful artists um, I was in company with. And so that was an amazing experience. But it's not the same as when you know that you're I'm 6'2". I'm 6'3". I'm 6'3". I'm 200 pounds. I'm a tall leading man. So, it's
Hmm.
difficult to ride the ensemble sometimes when you know that you are a leading man, especially if you haven't done it for so many years. So Dreamgirls was actually um, really my first show, like really to get away, to be able to really create. Didn't feel like I was being watched or seen, and I felt like I was in a role that I could really tackle as a leading man. It
Hmm.
had been a long time coming. So yeah, you met me right when I had sort of tried to break into what I really wanted to do, what I really want to do. So,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. We'll get back on stage together at some point.
listen,
Some point after all this
hopefully,
madness.
child.
So I also want to talk to you about something very special you did this year with Broadway Black called the Antonio Awards.
Yay!
And I want you to talk about that because, brother, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It was a
You're
labor of
welcome.
love, most definitely. the Antonios is an idea that I've had for a long time. In the inception of Broadway Black, a part of that is always, having has always been having an award show. I see so much, when we look at Black media for mainstream, mainstream, television and film. We see, magazines, we see digital magazines, we see digital content, we see ads, we see stuff that really looks like it's marketed and catered to us. And so that's always been my goal, is to create things that lifted us up, and things that looked like and felt like they were meant for us. And with that, an award show. So I've always wanted to create an award show to uplift and to empower our own, and the Adelcos have been doing that for over 40 plus years. But I saw a different vision for it, more contemporary, more free, more young type of ceremony. And always had wanted to do that, and just never really had the opportunity or the resources to be able to do that. And so a couple of years ago, I was going to the Tonys. I was chatting with my friend Dustin Ross, who's a personality. He's a host, personality, comedian, extraordinaire writer, one of my really close friends. And I was going to the Tonys. I was like, I'm getting ready for the Tonys. And it was one of those years I was like, I really don't feel like doing this, because the Tony Day is like craziness. It's nonstop craziness from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4, 5, 6 o'clock the next morning. And so I just really was not in the mood. It was maybe my 4th or 5th year. Just wasn't in the mood. And he said, one day we're going to be able to do our own Tony Awards, and it's going to be the Antonios, like as a joke. And he was, just making a joke in reference to, Black culture. And we giggled about that for years. And so when it finally came time to do something, like I wanted to do something, I didn't know what, that idea stuck out in my head. And I said, yeah, like this seems tangible because it's digital, and because I don't have to have a lot of money. I don't have to pay for a venue. I don't have to, get transportation or hotels for, whoever or host or whatever. I don't have to do a lot. I have to do a lot, but not as nearly as much as I would have to if it was in person. So it felt tangible. It felt real. So I just started making phone calls to people that I knew could do certain things, that could be active in certain places, and really that had a skill set for certain things. So I just started calling people that I knew, and they were available because we were in a pandemic. So
Right.
it's like I struck at the exact right time, like lightning struck, and it all came together. And the way that we worked together, that team, was really unreal. We all just really complimented each other. Everyone took their ego out of it for the common good of the community. And I think that shows. I think the love that we poured into it really shows. And so I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy that it happened. It's still, sometimes I can't believe it, because we did all of that in 6 weeks, and it's been long since it happened now. And so to still be riding off of that wave is unlike anything else I've ever done. So I'm very proud.
Yeah. You should be very proud. I remember watching that and like beaming, because I, also knew a lot of people on the awards, and seeing my friends in the opening number. I'm like, oh, I know about 3/4 of those people in the opening number, and knowing that you put this together, and the hard work you put in, and the team you had behind it, and you could see the love in the production. And so
Yeah.
you should be very, very proud of it, and ride that high as long as possible.
Listen, well, we've already started planning the next one, so
There you
the work
go.
is about to, come to an end, but there's going to be another one soon. So I'm excited.
And that's interesting for you to say that it was always going to be digital, correct? Like, I thought you were planning it to be in person, but the fact that it was already going to be a digital thing, and then COVID so happened, and you were like, great, everybody's home.
Well, no, the awards always. I wanted it to be in person. I truly did want it to be in person.
Oh, okay.
But because of where we were, I didn't have the idea until after we were already in quarantine. Because we were in quarantine, and I had just done this Inside the Mind series where I talked about mental health and how people were coping and dealing with this new normal. And I had finished that. I think I had gotten what I needed from that, and I felt inspired to create. And so I said, yeah, digital feels tangible to me because I don't have all of the resources. So I
I
can
see.
use and create the world that I want easier through the computer than I can in real life, because it costs like no money. Like, I mean, I think I paid overall, like just for like, little trinkets here and there just to make things happen. I think I paid maybe $300 to $400 for that entire production.
Mm. Wow. Which in real life would have cost you thousands.
30 to 40,000. No, without any question. A venue itself to hold or house a production of what we would like to see, especially with that many people that we had in this show, um, it would cost, just a venue itself would cost us $30,000.
Mm.
And yeah, so it's no joke that we can black people can create whatever we want. We just don't.
Mhm.
We just haven't been known to have the capital or the resources to do it, and so we make
Mhm.
do with what we have, which is always beautiful and it's always heartfelt because it comes from a real place. But imagine what we can do when we actually have the capital and the resources to create. That's what I'm excited about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes me excited too, because I hope in this time that, we're creating and manifesting the things we want so that when we do eventually come out of this, we can go, okay, here, world, this is what we've been working on. This is what we've been saving for. This is what I'd like to present to you
Hmm.
and just do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so I would ask you, what do you miss about our industry right now? Because we're people who give hugs and like to go out and
I mean, not all of us. I mean, I miss
not
going
right.
to theater. I miss live theater. I do miss the energy around performance. I miss the
Mhm.
energy around um, storytelling. There's
Mhm.
nothing like that to be able to go on a journey with a group of people, and no two journeys are the same. Each journey is different depending on which night you see the show. So um,
Right.
I miss that experience, that one of a kind storytelling journey going, if you will. So that's what I miss. Nothing else, by all means. Like, I am so okay being inside the house. I'm so okay not having to go anywhere. Like, yeah, like, and I don't, so I say this often, but I'm not a people person.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't like people. I love human beings. I don't like people because people. Um, and so I have learned how to protect my energy in that way, but also it right before Corona, when we were doing Dreamgirls in Virginia, I had just made the choice to choose me first. I was just
Mm.
then beginning to make the choice to, like, put myself first and give Broadway Black and everybody else my overflow. So I had made a commitment to stay off of social media. I've been off social media now on my personal accounts for over a year. Um,
Okay.
and that was a decision I made to sort of focus more on myself than what I was presenting out into the world. And when I did that, that's when I booked Dreamgirls. That's when I booked all these different things I had. Like, I was pretty much booked all the way up until March of next year. So imagine finally deciding to choose yourself.
Mhm.
I did this show at Carnegie Hall singing all Sondheim music with Titus Burgess. That was in February. And while we were in rehearsals for that was when I saw the auditions for Dreamgirls. So I ended up auditioning for that day. And then ended up auditioning for more stuff. So imagine you are just now finally deciding to choose yourself. The
Mhm.
projects that you have with Broadway Black are, like, now sort of moving and shaping the way that you want them because you're working in a healthy way. Your mental health is great. Your physical health is good. And you're choosing you first all along the way. I was in a perfect position. And so to have all of that stripped away
Mhm.
at that time really, like, it messed me up. Yeah, it messed me up because,
Mhm.
yeah, I'd already spent 2 and 3 years in the house. I already spent the last 2 years, not going to events, not doing much. I moved up here to Riverdale to be away from the city. Um, so yeah, I'd already done a lot at that particular point in um, what I thought was self healing. But the moment that my ego was bruised and all of the things that I thought that I deserved and were owed to me and I was finally going to get were stripped from me, um, what did I have left, Ayana?
Mhm.
And
Right.
that hurt a lot. So in that, I had to do some soul searching.
In talking about choosing yourself first, finally choosing yourself first, and, right now I'm calling this chapter of my life becoming,
Hmm.
because I think I've been in that for the last couple years of really choosing myself and everything else gets the overflow. With that, what would you say to artists that are having a hard time right now, haven't found a way to pivot yet? What would you say to encourage those artists who are dealing with their mental health and their spiritual health and even their physical health right now to choose yourself and get through this? Because we will get through it.
Yeah, definitely. The best advice I can give is breathe. Breath is the center and the beginning and the ending of everything.
Hmm.
So our first therapist is breath. Um, the moment you begin to feel anything other than joy or the state that you want to be in, which is happiness or contentment. Um, when you feel anything outside of what you want to feel, you have to stop and breathe and take in the moment and be present. So that's the biggest thing. For a long time, my mind would dwell in the past, my mind would dwell in the future. It was very hard for me to be present, which also affected me wanting to act or be on stage because I couldn't play three different roles. I can play two. I can play myself and I can play a role on stage, but I can't play myself, whoever I want to pretend to be, and then another role on stage.
Mm.
So I have to choose. I had to choose, and the choosing started with my breath first. I had to take in a breath to say I choose me first. So that's the best advice I can give is to breathe and to listen to yourself, honor yourself. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that was beautiful. And simply put, to just breathe.
yeah.
Along those lines, what do you look forward to in our industry when we come back and how things have changed? Because we do know that things need to change. And I think, all of the issues that we are currently going through that have been exposed, the rug has been lifted in the general population of the US, but then also within the entertainment industry and then in the theater industry, all of the issues that have been happening. What do you hope our industry learns from this time, and how do you hope they pivot and adapt and learn?
You know, Ayana, this is a battle that I have been fighting for a long time before this pandemic.
Mhm.
Since the moment that I entered this industry, it has been an uphill climb of representation, of equality, of diversity, of speaking up and out for specifically for Black people.
Mhm.
I'm not a BIPOC platform. I am a Black platform. My voice and my activism is rooted in Blackness,
Mhm.
and so I have to be firm on that. My biggest takeaway going forward, and what my biggest hope is, I should say, is that people stand in their voice. I want to
Mm.
see people continue to stand in their voice. For so many years, I had to listen behind the scenes of people complaining and rightfully so, hurt and feeling attacked and feeling isolated and feeling the microaggressions and feeling so many different things in which they all rightfully own those feelings. They own those feelings. They're theirs. And I had to share those with them for so many years. And so I'm glad that we're now at a point where I don't have to hold more than I am supposed to carry. Um,
Mhm.
Broadway Black was literally the only platform for a long time, and so I got a lot of the weight of what that meant. Of some people even joked and called Broadway Black the NAACP of Broadway at one point in time,
Mhm.
and but that was a serious weight for me, and nothing's I didn't sign on for that. That's not what I signed up to do,
Mhm.
which is okay because I served my purpose for that at that time. Now, because we have so many other initiatives happening, so many other organizations, I am happy to see that, and I'm happy to say that I can now focus on what I've always wanted to do, which is create positive and um, wonderful imagery for Black people in the theater. I want them to feel like stars. I want them to look like stars. I want like the stars that they are, I should say.
Mhm.
And so, being able to focus on that solely and focus on the positive messages and the positive stories of the different types of Black people that come into this industry is all that I have ever wanted. I've never been a social justice or a justice warrior in this way. I am all for it, but I know my nerves. Like I know my body. I know the type of person that I am. Uh,
Mhm.
I likes to fight. I like to argue. I have that sort of energy that I am combative in that way. And so I know that about myself, and I know that I avoid instances that rev me up in that way, that anger me, or that feel like there's not justice, there's injustice happening. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to not have to focus on those things. I like to be able to focus on the joy, which is why I stopped talking about any of the stories that were coming out during the time of the pandemic. And we really just focused on the Antonios, which is why it seemed like the Antonios came out of nowhere when people really needed it, because they had been talking about all of this turmoil and all this stuff that had been boiling up for years. And I said, there's no way I can continue to do that. I've already been doing that for 8 years. I've already been talking about it on my podcast every week. I've been writing about it on the website. I've been doing posts about it on Instagram for 8 years. And not many people were paying attention or wanting to galvanize change because they were in a position of power for themselves. So now that people don't have a job, they're now more than willing to do more. Now that people don't have a job, they're now more willing to speak up. And my main hope is that they don't lose that voice once we get
Mm-hmm.
back to work and they feel as though now they have something to lose again. That's all
Mm.
that I hope. Yeah, that's all that I hope, because if we continue and press forward with the change that's happening right now, and they continue using their voice, then I can
Mm-hmm.
continue to use my voice in the way that I want to.
Right.
And it will be better for everyone. And that change will actually happen if we all galvanize together for the greater good, and people don't begin to back down or become scared because of they now feel as though they have something to lose, or they can't be the person to speak out anymore.
Right. Right.
Does that
Well
make sense?
said. What'd you say?
I said, does that make sense? I mean,
That makes,
and,
complete sense.
and like Ayana, you know me, so like
Mhm.
we experienced something in Virginia together, and you know that I don't like having to do what I did in Virginia.
Mhm.
I don't like having to speak up and out against what I see is injustice, or what I see is unfair treatment, uh,
Mhm.
uh, passive aggressive whiteness. I do not deal well in those spaces, um, because whiteness loves to play dumb, and that's not. Um, I just can't allow it, and so I don't like doing those types of things, but I have to, because who else will? If I'm in the situation, if I'm in the space and nobody else will, who else would do it besides me? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't like having to do it. So yeah, but I'm not afraid to. That's my whole point. I
Mhm.
don't want to, but I'm not afraid to. I guess that's my whole point.
You're right. This time has galvanized everybody to finally speak up, that we don't lose it
Yeah.
once things start to come back and we start to, take jobs that we didn't create, that we could
Right.
potentially lose. Okay, well, if me speaking up means I lose it, then I guess I lose it.
Right.
But knowing that you've made something in this quarantine time that you can say, okay, if I lose that job, I still got these 6 other things happening for me. So that's fine.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, Drew, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so
No,
much for being
thank you for having
open.
me.
And of course, of course, of course. This was wonderful. And before I let you go, I must say something to you. And that is, I acknowledge you, I celebrate you, and I uplift you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Come on, affirmation.
You're
I
very
love it.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're very
And I
welcome.
do the same
Yeah.
for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I received that. Andrew, thank you so much for sharing. Full for me, overflow for you really does sum up our conversation. It's a wonder why any of us has ever done anything but that. Like Andrew said, now that you've found your voice or are finding it, stand in it. Don't hold more than you can carry. Ask yourself, am I filling up with the things that make me happy and that I cherish so others can receive my overflow, or am I cheating myself? Thank you again, Andrew, and thank you for tuning in. I'll speak to you soon.